It's a scary headline for the front page of Boulder, Colorado's small-town daily newspaper. A warning from the mother of a little beauty queen, JonBenet Ramsey.
JonBenet Ramsey.
JonBenet Ramsey.
JonBenet.
JonBenet. My name is JonBenet Ramsey.
Who was murdered in her own home sometime Christmas night.
This is the murder and mystery video of JonBenet Ramsey. JonBenet Ramsey was a 6-year-old little girl who lives in Boulder, Colorado with her father, John Ramsey, her mother, Patsy Ramsey, her little brother, Burke Ramsey, and her stepsister, Melinda, and her stepbrother, John. Her name is actually a combination of her father's name. Her father's name is JonBenet, and so they combined that to be JonBenet. The Ramsey family lives in Boulder, Colorado, and for those of you who don't know, it's a very wealthy and small little town.
There's a saying here in Colorado that Boulder is 30 square miles of fantasy surrounded by reality.
The Ramseys were a very well-known family throughout their town, and John was a very successful businessman, and Patsy was a former pageant girl, and she did plays and skits for people in their town. JonBenet was also a pageant girl. She followed in her mother and grandmother's footsteps. They really pushed her to love pageantry and love doing it, and did it ever since she was a little girl.
Self had entered beauty contests.
Yes.
I'm a junior at West Virginia University.
So this was, what, fun for you both
It
to
was
have
the
her do
most
this?
wonderful time of my life.
The Ramseys lived in 6,700 square foot Tudor on 15th Street, and it was a 15-bedroom mansion. It was also a 4-story house. In the Ramsey basement, you have the 2 storage rooms, a laundry room, the stairs to the first floor, the basement bathroom, the boiler room, the wine cellar / storage room, 2 crawl spaces, a train room, and another storage. On the first floor, you have the garage, the spiral staircase again, another storage room, the mud room, a hallway, a study, the breakfast room, the dining room, the living room, the solarium, the stairs to the basement, the foyer, the kitchen, and the lower hallway. On the second floor, there was John Andrew's bedroom, which was John Ramsey's other son. We have the commons and the spiral staircase again. Then there's JonBenet's room with a balcony and 2 bathrooms connecting to JonBenet's room and John Andrew's room. And then there was the children's playroom, Melinda's room, which is John Ramsey's daughter, a balcony, and then Burke's room. And then the stairs to the first floor and the third floor. Now, the third floor was strictly just the Mr. and Mrs. Ramsey's bedroom. So it was like another little house up there. You have the master bedroom, stairs to the second floor, another stairway to the second floor, a bathroom, 2 dressing rooms, a closet, and now the Ramseys were really close and they did almost everything together. They were always at JonBenet's pageants wherever they went. Melinda and John Andrew grew very close to JonBenet and Burke. They had a good relationship, and actually John Ramsey had another daughter, Elizabeth, and she died a couple years before JonBenet's murder in a car crash. John Ramsey was interested in flying and sailing, and he also had a big company. When Patsy was asked what she liked to do, she said, invest in people's futures.
I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. I'm a friend. I'm a wife and a mother. John used to just tell people that I invested in futures, the futures of my children. That's how I usually answer my occupation.
The Ramsey family loved Christmas time. It was one of their favorite times of the whole year, and Patsy especially decorated the whole entire house from top to bottom with Christmas decorations. Every single room had a Christmas tree. And so because of this, random people could go through their house, tour their house, and see all the Christmas decorations, and she did this almost every year.
Oh, I'm Patsy Ramsey. Daddy's not here, but this is JonBenet. She's 4, Burke is 7, and we'd like to welcome you to our home and wish you a very Merry Christmas.
And JonBenet, her pageantry really picked up around Christmas. She did a lot more because it was her favorite time of year. So the morning of December 25th, it was like a normal Christmas morning for them. They made a pancake and hash brown breakfast almost every Christmas, and They opened their presents, they had a good start to the morning, and then later on that evening, the Ramsey family was going to their friend's house for a Christmas dinner. So once it got later in the day, they headed to their friend's house, and after, it was around 8 or 9 p.m. when they decided to head home. And when they headed home, John and Patsy claimed that little JonBenet had fallen asleep in the back of the car, just how little kids do when they've had a long day. They brought her inside and put her to bed, and then John, Patsy, and Burke went to bed shortly after that. The murder of JonBenet Ramsey then took place sometime between the hours of 10 p.m. on December 25th and 5 a.m. on December 26th. At 5:52 a.m. on December 26th, police dispatch received a call from Patsy Ramsey claiming that she had found a ransom note and her daughter had been kidnapped.
911 emergency. Police. What's going on? 515th Street. What's going on there, ma'am? We have a kidnapping. Hurry, please. Explain to me what's going on, okay? There's a note left and our daughter's gone. A note was left and your daughter is gone? How old is your daughter? 6 years old. She's gone. 6 years old. How long ago was it? I don't know. I just found the note. And my daughter's gone. Does it say who took her? What? Does it say who took her? I don't know. There's a ransom note here. It's a ransom note? It says SBTC. Victory. Please. Okay, what's your name? Are you Patsy Ramsey? I'm the mother. Oh my God. Please. I'm sending an officer over, okay? Please. Do you know how long she's been gone? No, I don't. Please, we just got out. Is she right here? Oh my God, please. Okay, well, there's somebody. I am, honey. Please. Take a deep breath away, okay? Hurry. Patsy.
Patsy claims that she woke up at 5 a.m. on December 26th and was going downstairs. I think it might have been to get a drink of water or something. And she was stopped on the spiral staircase by a 3-page ransom note. Reading this note the best that it could be read, Mr. Ramsey, listen carefully. We are a group of individuals that represent a small foreign nation. We respect your business, but not the country that it serves. At this time, we have your daughter in our possession. She is safe and unharmed, and if you want to see 1997, you must follow our instructions to the letter. You will withdraw $118,000 from your account. $100,000 will be in $100 bills, and the remaining $18,000 in $20 bills. Make sure that you bring an adequate size attached to the bank. When you get home, you will put the money in a brown paper bag. I will call you between 8 and 10 a.m. tomorrow to instruct you on delivery. The delivery will be exhausting, so I advise you to be rested. If we monitor you getting the money early, we might call you early to arrange an earlier delivery of the money and hence an earlier pickup of your daughter. Any deviation of my instructions will result in the immediate execution of your daughter. You will also be delivered her remains for proper burial. The 2 gentlemen watching over your daughter don't particularly like you, so I advise you not to provoke them. Speaking to anyone about your situation, such as police, FBI, etc., will result in your daughter being beheaded. If we catch you talking to a stray dog, she dies. If you alert bank authorities, she dies. If the money is in any way marked or tampered with, she dies. You will be scanned for electronic devices, and if any are found, she dies. You can try to deceive us, but be warned that we are familiar with law enforcement countermeasures and tactics. You stand a 99% chance of killing your daughter if you try to outsmart us. Follow our instructions and you stand a 100% chance of getting her back. You and your family are under constant security as well as the authorities. Don't try to grow a brain, John. You are not the only fake out around, so don't think that killing will be difficult. Don't underestimate us, John. Use that good Southern common sense of yours. It is up to you now, John. Victory, SBTC. So after reading that note, as any mother would, Patsy Ramsey freaked out and woke up John, and they immediately called the police. Kimberly Archuleta was the police dispatcher on the phone, and she had sent police officers to the Ramsey's house, and they arrived there at approximately 5:59 in the morning. And when they got there, the Ramseys had already invited all of their friends and family there, and so there was a ton of people in the house, which is a really bad thing because it's a huge contamination of evidence. And the police handled the case from the start really badly, and they should have made everyone get out because the Ramsey's house is technically a crime scene. And so with everyone being there, any evidence of an intruder or anyone else in the house would be tampered with everyone's fingerprints and anything else. Now, the police stayed there almost all day, and were waiting mostly between 8 and 10 a.m. for the group that wrote the ransom note to call. And 10 a.m. passed and they still hadn't called. At around 1 p.m., one of the police officers asked John Ramsey and one of his friends if they could go have a look around the house to see if anything was out of place. And what was strange about this was the police officer had asked John Ramsey to start looking from top to bottom of the house, but immediately John went right to the basement and started looking from bottom to top. And this could have just been a coincidence, but you would think that you would do what the police are telling you to do and start from top to bottom. So as they were looking, John Ramsey went into the basement and went to the cellar, and that's where he found the body of his daughter, JonBenet. He immediately screamed and picked up JonBenet and brought her upstairs, and this was another terrible contamination of evidence because the body had been touched. The DNA that was on the body is now contaminated. When John Ramsey had picked her up, he unwrapped her in the towel that she was wrapped in and put a blanket around her. Another thing was a huge contamination of evidence, and this is part of the police's fault because why would they let a father who had just had a kidnapped daughter go look around the house for her? A police officer should be with the parents at all times, especially during this time. He set her down in the living room in front of a Christmas tree, and Patsy Ramsey was screaming, hysterical as any mother would be. Her deceased daughter laying in front of her, and when John brought her up the stairs, he asked one of the cops if she was dead, and she replied this way.
1 p.m. Although the house had already been searched by patrolmen before she arrived, Arndt says that in order to break the building tension, she asked John Ramsey and his friend Fleet White to search the house again, top to bottom, looking for anything out of place. She says she gave them specific instructions not to touch anything. She says John Ramsey headed straight to the basement. She heard Fleet White scream for an ambulance, and then a chilling discovery. For Arndt, the pieces of the puzzle fell into place.
And I see John Ramsey carrying JonBenet up the last 3 steps from the basement. And my mind exploded. And everything that I had noted that morning that stuck out instantly made sense. And JonBenet was clearly dead. Then she's been dead for a while. I ordered him to put JonBenet down. I knelt next to her and I leaned down to her face. And John leaned down opposite me. And his face was just inches from mine. And we had a nonverbal exchange that I will never forget. And he asked if she was dead. And I said, yes, she's dead. And I told him to go back to the room and to dial 911. And as we looked at each other, I remember, and I wore a shoulder holster, tucking my gun right next to me and consciously counting, I've got 18 bullets.
Why did you do that?
Because I didn't know if we'd all be alive when people showed up. I said everything made sense in that instance. And I knew what happened.
Do you think your fear was well-founded?
You bet I do. There's no doubt in my mind.
To this day?
Never wavered.
You were afraid because you thought the killer was still in the house.
I knew it.
Absolutely?
Absolutely.
After JonBenet's body was found, the Ramseys immediately stopped cooperating with police and did not agree to do any further interviews with them. But the day after, we saw Patsy on CNN and she looks absolutely terrible.
Patsy Ramsey, JonBenet's mother, and I'm grateful that we are finally able to meet together face to face. I'm appalled that anyone would think that John or I would be involved in such a hideous, heinous crime. But let me assure you that I did not kill JonBenet. I did not have anything to do with it. I love that child with my whole of my heart and soul.
Shortly after JonBenet's death and her body was discovered, the Ramseys flew out to Atlanta, Georgia. They're from Atlanta, Georgia, and so they immediately flew out there. They didn't want to be at home. Their home was constantly being investigated and they wanted to get out of there. So they flew down to Atlanta, Georgia, and that's also where JonBenet was buried. JonBenet was buried at St. James Episcopal Cemetery in Marietta, Georgia on December 31st. She was interred next to her 22-year-old sister, Elizabeth Ramsey, who had died 4 years earlier in a car crash. Now that the timeline has been established, this is where the evidence comes in. First, the 911 call. In the beginning part of the 911 call, you can hear Patsy saying, "We need an police."
We need police. We need police.
Professional 911 call analyzers said that you don't say "we need an police." You would say we need the police. And they think that she said this and sort of stumbled on her words because she was trying to say "we need an ambulance" because she knew that JonBenet was hurt. She also said "we have a kidnapping." Oh my gosh, we have a kidnapping. She was more focused on the details of what had happened rather than her daughter being missing. And she didn't really start out with like, oh, her daughter is not there. She kind of just was focused on, oh, we have a kidnapping. At the end of the call, there is an immediate change in Patsy's voice, and police say that they think that Patsy had thought that she had hung up the phone, and Kimberly Archuleta thinks that she hears Patsy say, "We've called the police, so now what?" It's very muffled and it's kind of hard to hear, but there's three distant voices, which would be Patsy, John, and Burke. And if this was Burke, that would lead to the Ramseys lying about where Burke was at the time of this happening because they claim that he was still asleep all the way until the police got there. The second piece of huge evidence in this case is the ransom note. The morning of JonBenet's murder, Patsy found the note on the spiral staircase, and it's extremely weird because ransom notes are not usually 3 pages long. They are way shorter, they're right to the point, and they're really just not that long. The paper that the ransom note was written on was from the Ramseys' notepad that they had by the telephone. And why would an intruder write, or someone who took JonBenet have time to sit down and write the note in their house? They would want to get out of there as quick as possible, and the note being 3 pages long is just not reasonable. It would have to have had been written prior, but that seems impossible since it was on their notepad.
The first detectives to arrive at the $1 million mansion that terrible December morning, Robert Whitson.
The handwriting examiner said, "I need to show you something." And he turned 3 or 4 pages in that notepad, and at the top of the pad said Mr. and Mrs. and the start of the letter R. So at that point, it looked like somebody had used that notepad to make a practice ransom note. And that notepad was Patsy Ramsey's.
And another detective on the case, Fred Patterson, telling Lifetime.
There were some similarities in the handwriting between Patsy's writing and the writing on the note.
Investigative journalist Jeff Shapiro, who covered this story for over a decade, saying,
Would an intruder break in and take the time to try to copy Patsy's handwriting, or is it just sheer coincidence that some of the handwriting seems to resemble hers? Or is none of this a coincidence?
In the note, it says that they are a small foreign group, and this is odd because as someone who's saying that they have your daughter, they would probably want to assert power and dominance, and by saying that they're a small group, it's almost like belittling themselves. To talk a little bit about the handwriting on the ransom note, it looked like someone tried to switch their writing in order to write it, and towards the end of the note, the handwriting got a little bit sloppy. It looked like whoever was writing it tried to sound like they were foreign and spell the easy words but getting harder words right. This seems to be a little bit odd, and they actually tested Patsy and John to see if their writing matched the ransom note, and John was ruled out, but Patsy was not ruled in or out. So a lot of people think that Patsy had written the note because one, it was on her note, on the notepad that was in her house, and her handwriting was very similar. Another strange thing about the note was the amount of money that the group wanted. It was $118,000, and that was exactly the amount of money that John Ramsey had gotten for his bonus that year. That seems to be a little bit too specific. You would think that if the kidnapper knows them and they know that they're wealthy, why wouldn't they ask for more? Or why would it be that specific number? It seems to be like a number that someone in their family or someone close to them knew that they could, like, they wouldn't care if they would give it up because it was just a bonus. The note was signed SBTC, and Patsy was said to be very, very religious, and so some people think that that means saved by the cross, meaning that because they may have done something with, they may have been responsible for the death of JonBenet, they would be saved by the cross. Now is talking about a little bit of the evidence on JonBenet's body. JonBenet's final cause of death was by strangulation, and she also had blunt force trauma to the head. She was strangled with a garrote. Part of the garrote was tied to the end of a paintbrush from Patsy Ramsey's art set. So everything that has been used so far is from the house. There's been no outside things that have been used in this murder that would lead us to believe that it was an intruder. The strangulation happened 45 minutes to 2 hours after the blunt force trauma. There was duct tape over JonBenet's mouth. On the duct tape, there were fibers from Patsy's clothes that she was wearing to the Christmas dinner, and also Patsy was in those same clothes. After, when she was talking to the police and news, she claimed that she just threw on what was already out, but a lot of people think that she was in those clothes the whole night because something had happened. So to talk a little bit more about the evidence, there was a bowl of pineapple that was found on the table in the Ramsey dining room, and there was also undigested pineapple found in JonBenet's stomach in the autopsy after she died. There was a mark right here on JonBenet's neck, and it was found to be matched up with the toy train car of Burke. There are a lot of theories that go along with this case on who people think did it. One of the people who is suspected to be responsible of JonBenet's death is Burke. Burke has a history of being a little bit disturbed. In a previous year, JonBenet did something to upset him, and he took a golf club and hit her in the head, and it actually knocked her out. So what people think happened was Burke was having some pineapple. Maybe it was the night of the 25th after they got home, or maybe it was early morning on the 26th. And on the pineapple, there was DNA of Patsy Ramsey and Burke, and so people think that JonBenet went over, picked a piece of pineapple out of the bowl. That's why her DNA was not on the bowl. Picked it out and ate it, and Burke got really mad and hit her in the head with the flashlight. The flashlight could have just been on the table, and he saw it, and it was the first thing that he picked up and hit her, and then knocked her out. They thought that she was dead from it. They faked everything else. They faked the kidnapping, everything else to protect Burke. John and Patsy Ramsey were ultimately said to be the main suspects. Some people believe that because Burke might have knocked JonBenet out, the parents thought that she was actually dead, but she was not. That would be the reason why the strangulation happened so long after the hit to the head. They might have thought she was dead and actually had to strangle her to make it seem like it was real, and when they did that, they killed her. And that would also explain why part of the garrote was from Patsy's art set. She didn't really know what to use. She broke it off and used it. JonBenet also had a history of wetting the bed, and another theory was that she wet the bed the night of December 25th, and then Patsy got really mad at her and accidentally hit her and killed her. This is another theory that's kind of far out because Patsy was overall a good mother, and so a lot of people don't really see that happening. It's just bedwetting, it's not that big of a deal. There was a couple of suspects outside of the family who were definitely considered. JonBenet was a pageant girl, and so a lot of people just thought that there was a man or whoever liked her, saw her in the pageants, stalked her, and then eventually killed her. There was a part of the basement where JonBenet was found. There was a window above where her body was, and the window was broken, and John Ramsey said that he knew that the window was broken and he knew that it was there, but they overall lived in a generally safe neighborhood, so he didn't really see an urge to get it done right away, and so he claims that's why it was there, but some people could have thought that that was the way the intruder got in. A man named Michael Helgoth actually confessed to her murder, but 2 months after he confessed, he committed suicide, and so no evidence really showed that he was there, and no evidence really showed that he did it, but he did confess. No one will really know if it's true or not. In 2008, there was a man named John McCarr, and he confessed to her murder, and he turned himself in, but police ruled out that this was impossible because he wasn't even in town on the night of the murder, and he was most likely just someone who was obsessed with the case and wanted to be held responsible. One of the last theories, and I think one of the most interesting theories, would be that since Patsy Ramsey did tours of their house for Christmas, there was always a ton of people going in and out of the house. Sometimes she really didn't even know the people that were in there. Some people think that an outsider was responsible for the murder, and some people think that he heard about this and he knew, oh, this is a way for me to get inside of their house, and so he went to the tour, and because the house was so big, he found a place to hide and stayed there for a couple days. The house was so big and the Ramseys really weren't home that often, and so honestly it would be pretty easy to hide. A lot of people think that whoever was hiding was in the basement, especially because the basement was sort of unfinished, so they really didn't go down there a lot. The theory goes that JonBenet could have woken up a little bit early because she had fell asleep so early the night before, went downstairs to get some water or whatever, and then whoever was hiding in their house took her to the basement. Was involved in her murder. All the evidence was from the house. This would explain why the ransom note was written on the notepad, because it was in their house. That would explain the paintbrush from the garret that was in the basement. And also there was a claim that they heard the neighbors the night of her murder, they heard screaming coming from the basement. This would also explain that why the ransom note was written, because whoever that was in the house didn't necessarily mean to kill her, but because she was screaming, he had to. And so that would be why the ransom note was so long, because he had so much time to write it out. And he knew the bonus because since he was in the house, he could have been creeping around John Ramsey's office and found his exact bonus and then thought, oh, this is a good idea to write down this number. And they actually did a test because of the fact that the neighbors heard the screaming. They did a test and put someone down there and had them screaming, and you could hear the screams from the neighbor's house, but you could not hear the screams from the 4th floor where John and Patsy's bedroom was, and that would explain why they didn't hear it, because the house was so big and you could not hear anything.
That it's just silly to think that somebody was able to break in, wander around the house while the parents are asleep, take the daughter, stun gun her, try and get her out the window. There's no way that they wouldn't have woken up.
There's a scream. The scream was heard by one of the neighbors 150 feet across the street from the Ramseys. She said it was the most terrifying child scream I've ever heard. Now, how could she hear it, but not the parents?
He goes out to the Ramsey house, and he's in the basement, and as he's looking, he sees a furnace. He actually sees a pipe that is actually open on the one end in the house, and it remains open to the exterior of the home. It's another one of those aha moments.
That is an open vent, and it's within a couple of feet of where JonBenet was lying. It's got an open bottom. It goes right out in front of the house. And the neighbor's property is right across the street. This is almost like a megaphone.
What Lou really wanted to find out was, could the parents have heard the screaming 3 levels below them? This home is a 6,700 square feet Tudor. It has multiple levels. You have the basement level, you have the main level, you have the second story level, which is where JonBenet and her brother Burke had bedrooms. And then there's a level above that, which was entirely the master bedroom. So he hired an audiologist, and he had people in the master bedroom on the 3rd floor, and he had people across the street, and he conducted the test. And guess what? They could not hear screaming on the master level floor, but if you went across the street, you could hear it perfectly.
And then the theory also says that that's why the window was broken, was because he escaped through the window. And there's also a claim that no one exited through that window because there's a spider web on the bottom. And people think that, oh, if someone was going in and out of that window, the spider web would have broken. The spider web is very small and it's in the corner, and a lot of people think, oh, that's like, you could easily go around the spider web. And the last theory is that the ransom note was true. Everything was true. The parents were telling the truth. There was a real group who was out for JonBenet. They could have found her through her pageants. She's well known, and they really did kill her, and the note was real. You really don't know if that's for sure either, especially because of the handwriting, and it's really unlikely that that would have happened and there would have been no traces of them anywhere. A couple of strange aspects of this case was that all of the Ramsey family interviews that were done were said to be a little bit strange. In the interview that Patsy did right after JonBenet's death, she seems to be a little out of it. She's talking really slowly. She's not really, her eye contact is just weird. And same with John Ramsey, the interviews with him, he's just kind of like...
And I may have gotten through another sentence, like, I can't, we have your daughter, and I don't know if I got any further than that. And I immediately ran back upstairs and pushed open her door, and she was not in her bed. And I screamed for John.
It said, don't call the police, you know, that type of thing. And I told Patsy, call the police immediately. And I think I ran through the house a bit.
We went to check our son.
Checked our son's room. Sometimes he sleeps in there. And we just were...
We were just frantic, and I dialed the police and 911, and she was trying to calm me down, and I said our child had been kidnapped, and you know, she was trying to very methodically, and I was just screaming, you know, send help, send help.
Burke is sort of the missing piece from this case. He had done one interview in his whole life. This was a couple years ago with Dr. Phil, and during that interview, he was super just like, he was smiling the whole time. He really wasn't looking like he was taking it seriously.
We're waking up that morning?
Yep. The first thing I remember is my mom bursting in my room, really frantic, saying like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, running around my room looking for JonBenet. At that point, I was awake. And the next thing I remember is a police officer coming to my room and shining a flashlight.
It was still dark when this happened?
Yeah, I was just laying there.
What time did she come in?
Early, I don't remember.
Had to be, it was still dark, so it had to be pretty early. Did she turn on the light when she came in?
I don't remember if she did or not. I do remember the cop coming in and shining a flashlight around, so the light must have been off.
Some people think that it was just because he was nervous. He had never done an interview before. He was raised practically through the media. He was like bound to be a socially awkward kid, and so some people think that's why. Also, some people smile when they're nervous, so this could also be why. But just like he was talking about his sister who got murdered, you'd think that he would have more of a sadder reaction. There's video footage of him talking to one of the police officers right after the murder, and the way he responds is kind of odd. He says that he's not really focused on what's going on. He's just busy playing his video games, and he says that he feels safe in his house and in his town, even though his sister was just murdered a day before. He also describes how he thinks it happened, something being hit in her head, someone got mad, something being hit in her head. So this kind of backs up the theory that it was him, and he knows what happened, and he knows that that's what happened. So that's why he's explaining it like that, because kids don't really understand how, like, he was kind of just doing it in a code.
Tell you about why they wanted you to come talk to me.
See if they can find who, you know what?
Well, let me tell you a couple things. First, my job is partly to get to know you as best as I can. And make sure that you're okay, because things are kind of been hard, I imagine. Okay. Are you going to school?
No, because I'm trying to stay away from the press. My friend said that after school, there's all these media people waiting there going, hello, did you sleep work in class today? No, I did not. I think he was absent. Oh, thanks. They go,
So do you feel like you're pretty safe?
yeah.
Yeah? You ever worry about it?
Not really.
No?
I'm usually just playing my Nintendo.
Yeah. Any secrets, do you think?
I probably do, but I don't really remember them.
Yeah.
And if I did remember any, I don't think I'd tell you.
Why not? I'm a good person to tell secrets too.
Because they're secrets.
That's true. Have things changed at your house a lot?
A lot, yeah.
Yeah, what's changed?
Well, you know, the police have it blocked off and stuff.
Well, what about for you and your parents? Okay.
You know, parents are sometimes crying.
Yeah.
But I'm basically just going on with my life. You know.
What do you think happened?
I know what happened.
I mean, when she got killed. How do you think that happened?
I think. Well, I asked my dad where did they find her body, and my dad said I found it down in the basement, and so I think that someone took her very quietly and tiptoed down the basement, and then maybe took a knife out, and then, you know, or something like that.
You think that's how she died?
Or maybe a hammer in the head, maybe.
So what did your parents tell you about your sister dying?
Or just when I got there to the house where the kind of funeral type thing, my dad said, JonBenet's in heaven now. Just got burst into tears.
I'll bet. How are you dealing with it now?
I kind of forget about it because I'm just going.
You're just playing your video games all the time.
Go.
But let's take a break. Maybe you could draw your picture of your family for me while you tell me about it. Can you do that for me? When can I draw? That doesn't really matter. It's not a test of your drawing. Just so I get to know your family and stuff like that. So the first person you would draw would be who?
Oh, I got one.
Okay. So who's next? Who would you draw next? Mom. Okay. So what's your mom do? She work up at the house?
Work as a mom.
Work as a mom. So what do you like best about your mom? That's it? Was your mom the kind of mom that gives lots of hugs and kisses?
Yep.
Both you and your sister, or just you, or just your sister? Anybody else in your family? Are you going to draw?
I was going to draw me.
What about you?
And you know, it's been a long, painful process for you. Up to now, hasn't it? And for your mom and dad?
Probably.
Why do you think you're here?
You want to find out who killed my sister.
Why did you feel scared? You know, when Mom came rushing in.
Like I felt like something bad happened.
You hear Mom and Dad talking?
I just heard Mom like going psycho.
Going psycho?
Yeah, or like, you know.
Did you go down and see what was going on?
Just stay in bed.
So what went through your mind then?
Then I thought, maybe JonBenet is missing. But that's not that likely, so. No, I mean, what are the chances of that happening?
Is there anything about that night, if you can remember hearing anything during the night?
I don't remember hearing anything. Because I was sleeping, you know.
Did you sleep?
I always sleep real deeply and I can never hear anything.
Would you ever go downstairs in the basement and play?
Yeah, I had a train, electric train there.
How about the last year you lived there? Did you play there much?
Sort of.
Now, when you'd go to bed at night, what was your normal routine? I mean, would you get a snack before you went to bed?
I might get a snack. Not usually.
If you got a snack, what would you normally get? Or what would Mom let you have?
Pudding or yogurt.
Pudding and yogurt? Some parents let kids have cookies and candy and cereal and fruit and things like that.
I think, yeah, she would suggest like fruit and
So what kind of fruits would you typically have at home?
like pineapple maybe.
Yeah, do you like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that your favorite fruit? What was JonBenet's favorite snack?
I don't think she had a snack.
What about pineapple? Did she like pineapple?
Yeah, she liked pineapple.
When John and Patsy are asked about the bowl of pineapple in this interview, they just totally deny it. They don't know where it came from, even though that Patsy's DNA was clearly on the bowl and so was Burke's. So that just really doesn't add up at all.
All I'm saying is that I did not feed her pineapple when we returned home from the White's house. She was sound asleep. She was put in her bed and tucked in good night.
And we don't know if that's significant or not. All we know is what we've told the police, and that is that neither Patsy or I gave JonBenet pineapple when we got home that night. Had we been trying to hide something, it would be very easy for us to say, oh yeah, I remember, I gave her pineapple before she went to bed. Next question. But that's not what happened.
Another strange thing that most people don't know is that there was actually a 911 call hang-up from the Ramsey house a couple days prior to the murder. When John and Patsy were asked about this, they kind of just brushed it off. They thought maybe it was just one of the kids playing a trick. But some people actually believe that this was JonBenet and her parents were hurting her or doing something to her, and she tried to call the police, but the phone quickly hung up because they noticed that she was doing that. People don't know the reason behind this call at all, but that's one of the theories. John and Patsy Ramsey insisted on having the death date on JonBenet's tomb on December 25th. Obviously, we don't know for sure when JonBenet was murdered, whether it was late evening of the 25th or early morning the 26th, but either way, it's really undecided, so it seems odd that they would just want to have it on the 25th. Overall, this case is super frustrating. It's still unsolved. Nobody really knows who did it. A few years ago, Patsy Ramsey actually passed away. In her early years before JonBenet's death, she had ovarian cancer, and she had a relapse, it came back, and she passed away. John Ramsey is actually remarried, and the last we've seen of Burke was in the interview with Dr. Phil. So many people are still invested in this case, and it's a big mystery if it'll ever be solved.